Good Monday morning, YouTube. How you guys doing today? So evidently there is still a lot going on in Minneapolis, in particular, as it pertains to Derek Chauvin. If you guys may remember, Derek Chauvin is the officer that has been charged with first-degree murder for the killing of George Floyd. But as a result of that, Derek Chauvin was taken into custody. He's still in jail, in the county jail. But as a result of that, 8 black correctional officers say they were barred from guarding Derek Chauvin. Attorney Bonnie Smith said in a press conference Sunday that yesterday that 8 corrections officers were prevented from guarding or even interacting with Derek Chauvin, the former Minneapolis police officer charged in George Floyd's death. The jail and correction staff immediately expressed concerns, and the decision was reversed within 45 minutes. But the officers, via their attorney, they wish to remain anonymous, but via the attorney, the officers disputes the claim that the decision to have no black guards, guarding Derek Chauvin, they say that it is incorrect. Okay, that they are lying. The decision was not overturned, and they are still not able to guard Derek Chauvin. And my thing is, what are they trying to hide? Now, clearly, they're correct. They are protecting, their boy in blue. They're protecting Derek Chauvin. Who knows? He's probably on the floor all by himself. He's probably living a lot better than a lot of people live on a day-to-day basis in there. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm wondering, are they trying to pull some kind of Jeffrey Epstein, situation? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, what is really going on? They've already put it out there that he was under suicide watch, but since then, a lot of racism has occurred between the boys in blue, to the point to where there has been division. So I'm wondering, do all blue lives matter equally? It is amazing, like the level of racism that is being exhibited in this case alone. And those officers, by doing what they did to the black officers, in my opinion, they are making a perfect this is a perfect example of why people are, protesting for police reform. Do you see what I'm saying? And I'm sure that those black officers are very much offended. They're probably afraid. And so anyway, I'm gonna roll this video for you guys, and you be the judge. And we'll come after the video, after the news report. We'll come back to chat. Wow.
8 correctional officers of color are suing Ramsey County for discrimination. An attorney representing the officers says they were prohibited from entering or working on the floor where former MPD officer Derek Chauvin was being held. The attorney spoke about the lawsuit against the county this morning.
Right now, our community, our state, and our country are grieving the senseless death of George Floyd and far too many other people of color. Many of us are using this moment to examine and take a closer look at racism and the small and large systemic injustices facing our neighbors of color. Unfortunately, we're here today to bring light to another example of prejudice and discrimination, this time in the workplace. On Friday, May 29th, 8 correctional officers of color went to work at Ramsey County Jail, which is right here behind me, expecting to do their jobs. However, they were prevented from doing so when former police officer Derek Chauvin arrived at the jail that afternoon. Upon his arrival, Superintendent Leiden ordered that all the correctional officers of color were to be prohibited from guarding Chauvin or going anywhere on the 5th floor where he was to be held. This decision was made solely because of the color of the officer's skin. We're here today because 8 individuals who were impacted by this decision were brave enough to come forward. It was not easy, and it still isn't easy. Out of fear of retaliation, they've made the difficult decision to remain anonymous today. They're fearful of losing their jobs and livelihood and putting their families at risk. My clients are kind, fiercely loyal, passionate people who care deeply about each other and about their job. And the deliberate discriminatory treatment they received from Ramsey County on May 29th has left them feeling broken. This morning, I'll share a brief overview of the events at Ramsey County Jail, and then I'll take questions from reporters. On May 29th, officers of color were busily preparing the jail for Chauvin's arrival when they were informed in various ways that they would be reassigned away from any task requiring them to be on the 5th floor of the jail where Chauvin was to be held. For example, 2 of the officers of color were tasked with cleaning the 5th floor to prepare for Chauvin's arrival, which involved removing urine and other unsanitary waste. When the cleaning was done, they were hastily reassigned away from the 5th floor once Chauvin arrived. One acting sergeant was stopped in the middle of booking Chauvin by the superintendent himself, who told the sergeant he did not want the sergeant transporting Chauvin to his unit. One acting sergeant was stopped, several correctional officers of color were interrupted in the middle of responding to an emergency call and informed that they would not be permitted to complete the emergency procedure because it involved taking the inmate to the 5th floor. Another officer realized something was wrong because he was in the control room and noticed on the jail's cameras that all of the correctional officers of color were on the 3rd floor. These officers initially thought the interruption to their schedules was odd, but later learned it was no coincidence. Superintendent Leiden had issued an order prohibiting all employees of color from working on the 5th floor. At least one officer of color was also reassigned away from the 5th floor for her weekend shift on May 31st. I want to note that this was not a split-second decision, as the sheriff's office seems to be saying at this point. Superintendent Leiden shared his idea of segregating officers with one of his sergeants prior to issuing it. The sergeant, a person of color herself, informed Leiden that his plan was offensive, but Leiden marched on and issued it anyway. And that lieutenant was not alone in objecting to the superintendent's order. The superintendent implemented his order and stuck by it despite receiving urgent complaints from several other employees, including many of my clients. In the face of these complaints, Leiden initially defended his decision, claimed it was backed by Sheriff Fletcher and other leadership, and justified it by saying that the officers of color were a liability around Chauvin. After some time, Superintendent Leiden finally backed down and claimed he had decided to change the order, but at that point the damage had been done. Shifts had already been reassigned, and the blatant discrimination had broken the trust and the bonds between the jail staff and the supervisors. Some officers of color were so upset they went home, concerned emotions would endanger their fellow officers and inmates. The employees affected by the order were hurt and upset that the jail leadership did not trust them because of their skin color. These employees are highly trained professionals whose job it is to keep each other safe, the inmates safe, and the jail safe. That trust is critical to maintaining safety in that dangerous and intense jail environment. In the words of one of the officers, he said, "As correctional officers, we work and live in an environment where we are vigilant and constantly protecting each other. The segregation that was brought to the facility that day has created a divide amongst the officers that work in the jail. We have accepted this job to be responsible, professional, and dependable officers. In this time of crisis, minority officers have not been given an equal opportunity to show these abilities. Superintendent Leiden's actions created lack of trust and respect for minority officers." Ramsey County's segregation order caused immediate and long-lasting damage. It has made going to work difficult for the affected employees. They're dealing with humiliation, emotional distress, and some of them have had to take time off or give up overtime shifts or promotions due to their distress. And now they're coming forward with their stories and they fear retaliation. Unfortunately, instead of issuing a public apology and addressing their mistake, the sheriff's office went on record just a week and a half ago with Reuters insisting there was no truth to the employees' claims of the segregation order, further deepening their wounds. And it has utterly failed to take adequate action to ensure that the victims of this segregation order are taken care of and that this will not happen again. On Friday, Juneteenth, 8 of the correctional officers of color that were affected by this brazen discrimination filed charges of discrimination against Ramsey County with the Minnesota Human Rights Department, seeking an impartial investigation into the sheriff's department and how it could allow the May 29th order to happen. They are demanding that steps be taken to address the injustices faced by officers of color. Superintendent Leiden remains employed by Ramsey County and in the same building as my clients, despite promises that he would be reassigned from the jail. If there was an internal investigation by Chief Deputy Matusalem, as the sheriff's office now claims, none of my clients were interviewed. No formal apology or mental health resources have been extended to the affected employees. To address the harm they faced, these 8 officers are asking for removal of Superintendent Leiden and swift discipline of any other leadership who were involved or complicit in these actions. They're also requesting comprehensive in-person diversity and anti-bias training for all jail staff, a formal apology and retraction of the defamatory statements to the press, and a concrete plan to ensure that this discriminatory behavior never happens again at Ramsey County. In addition to those steps, they're seeking compensation for their emotional distress and lost earnings. These individuals want their experience and trauma recognized. They want their credibility restored, and they want justice served.
In response, Superintendent of the Adult Detention Center, Steve Leiden, says the decision out of care and concern for employees who may have been traumatized by recent events. He says he changed that order within 45 minutes of making it. Leiden also says he issued an apology to the affected employees.
Wow, well, clearly things haven't changed. This all started, like the attorney said, on May 29th. As soon as Chauvin was taken into custody, I can't imagine how it would feel to go to work every day and have people side-eyeing you simply because you are, a different color than them. Clearly, like I said, there is a uber important need for some type of diversity training here. And I honestly don't think that any amount of diversity training is going to offset the amount of deep-seated racism that is going on in this Minneapolis police department. I feel bad for the officers, but I also would have to question them. And why did it take an incident like this happening to them for them to come out? Now they say they want to remain anonymous, to the public, but clearly, if you're working in that police department, you know who these police officers are. So that is why they are still in fear of their job. Do you see what I'm saying? And nobody should have to go to work. And why would you have the black officers, clean out your urine and stuff like this, clean out a whole floor that clearly needs to be disinfected because of urine and whatever else is on that floor. So they cleared out the whole 5th floor so that the 5th floor could be made ready for Chauvin when he came in, and to be detained or whatever, right? They have janitors for that. They have other inmates that do that sort of thing. Why would you make these officers do that? And I asked the same question. What is it that they're trying to hide? It's clearly disrespectful for them to have treated these officers in this way. But like I said, how do they feel now about the boys in blue? You see what I'm saying? Now they are witnessing. Now we know that there is racism, in the police department, and have been, racism in every police department in these United States of America since the inception of the Fraternal Order of Police. But it is clearly a slap in the face, and it's absolutely disrespectful for them to be treated this way. And I'm just wondering if they feel like they need to be out protesting for police reform as well. I'm sure they do, especially because it's happened to them. Do you see what I'm saying? But yeah, that's what happened, guys. I'm gonna get off of here. Like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think about this story in the comment section below, and I'm gonna talk to you guys later. You guys have a nice day. Bye bye. Peace.